What is the biggest fan theory in the Cell Saga of Dragon Ball Z? In this video, I'm going to discuss that. Hey guys, so over on my community tab, I asked you guys recently what the biggest Cell Saga fan theory is. And as you can see here, a lot of people answered, which I will be getting into. Now, before that, I do also have, as you could see right over here, this post where I explained that now all members are able to gain access to the LSM Discord. Those memberships start at just $1 and you gain access to exclusive content and that much more. But I also have polls and a lot more to come in the future. Now, of course, I am actually going to start with the member section of this video. That's just another thing that you guys are able to gain access to. So starting with first off Xavier, where he said a question actually, which is, do I think the Cell Juniors were as strong as Super Saiyan 4 Gohan or Super Saiyan Grade 4? What am I jumping ahead to GT or Heroes? And also Perfect Cell when he was against Goku. Now, that's an interesting question. It depends on the source that you're looking at. There's an argument that they are somewhere in the vicinity of suppressed Perfect Cell, but in terms of being as strong as Goku or Cell when he fought him, I don't think so. I think that they might be a little bit below that point. So if Goku is like, let's say at full power, he would have been able to take the fight to them. Additionally, I also have the question of could Perfect Cell or Super Perfect Cell have beaten Gohan as a Super Saiyan 2 if they used the Kaioken? I think I talked about that in a video at one point. If not, I'll probably do it again, if not. But either way, the fact is that if you increase their power multiple times over and they were able to do that, then yeah, I would have to think so. And the Cell Juniors died and weren't in Super. Yeah, I've considered doing a whole video about that over the years because I did my own what if theory a long time ago called What If the Cell Juniors Survived? If one of them survived, and then Toyotaro does that special chapter where it's like, oh yeah, they all did, and for some reason they never aged, and also they are able to fight against, as a team, 17, who was weaker than just one of them, and that's part of how he got stronger. It's kind of nonsense, but that's one of my least favorite chapters in the franchise. So this next one is an in-depth theory that I'll just summarize right now. Basically, he's saying that when Dr. Gero actually created Android 16, he programmed him exclusively to kill Goku, and thus as a result, he calculated as a machine the easiest way to do this would be to destroy the planet, and thus he was going to immediately self-destruct and do that. At which point Dr. Gero shut him down and was adamant about not reactivating him, despite the fact that he didn't get rid of him because he was made in the resemblance, according to the Toriyama interview later on, of Gero's son. So as a result, that's an interesting theory that I could see being the main reason why he said that he would destroy the Earth. But at the same time, I do almost think that you can make an argument too that he just was making something up so that the two of them would not activate 16, or perhaps, of course, he had another contingency in place for 16 to only be activated if, let's say, Cell went rogue, or if Goku had defeated 17 and 18, which could also be yet another reason why he didn't awaken in the future, which I actually did a whole video about where he was in the future timeline. And also, finally, Xavier always throwing a lot of those in there. What if future Trunks' father was Yamcha? How much would his story have changed? And could he beat the future androids in Cell with a different method? Well, he would have gotten beaten by future Cyberman, obviously, but no, I think it would have changed a whole lot. I think Trunks being a Saiyan was really helpful, and if he was just a human, he'd be much more limited and have a lot less plot armor. Cell was able to turn himself into a larval state because he has Frieza cells and can make himself weaker if a situation does so require it. I think that definitely makes sense. It's possible that also some of the other beings that says in the manga were used to create Cell included something like, let's say, a cicada, and thus as a result that's why he buries himself underground in a form that looks like that and then requires about 4 years-ish to awaken and thus, achieve his next state, which he'll then be able to kind of go on further and further. It's possible that because of the fact that he was such a complex being that basically the computer decided that not only would it take him about 20 years to wake up or more, but also that, for him to actually be ready to be in that state. But also when he was in it, he needed even more time outside of the incubation process, let's say, to then in turn evolve to the state where he was ready to then evolve 2 more times with the absorptions of the androids. So extremely long process for a being, but again, I think a lot of the influence and inspiration there was actually a cicada, but you can argue that they used the cells to do that in that case, cell with cells, of course. Cell surviving his explosion wasn't luck. Jero designed him to be that way in the event that if Cell ever was getting beat, he could blow himself up, take out the opponent, and come back stronger to ensure he wouldn't be able to be challenged again. I like it. And I think that that's definitely a strong possibility. The computer was apparently a very advanced AI that could figure out the way to make the perfect life form, like David from the Prometheus movies. And yeah, the fact of the matter is that I do think in this case, it probably was more of a feature, not a glitch, to use like gaming terminology. So yeah, I would agree that that is probably true in universe, at least. Out of universe, it's like, oh, maybe I don't want Cell to be dead yet, so let's bring him back. Somehow Cell survived, although he did a much better job in Star Wars explaining how the main villain came back to life. Cell has the ability to move his core throughout his body, allowing him to survive Goku's instant transmission Kamehameha. Yeah, this is a big theory I've seen so many times over the years, which I definitely think would make sense in universe. When it comes to a plot hole, typically it's like, oh, well, there's no in-universe rationale to actually explain this, but the thing is that I think you could make that argument, or another way of looking at it perhaps is that the core is really his ultimate contingency to come back, because we know that Dr. Jero is all about consistencies, and about contingencies. And thus, as a result, he kind of had the computer program him, Cell in this case, to be able to come back just from the core, or let's say the core is destroyed, but half his body's still there, he can come back from the body. It's kind of up for you to decide in that case. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Give me your own answer to some of these theories and your own fan theory if you haven't had the chance to comment over here. What if Cell actually could be convinced to turn good? What if Bulma removed the Frieza and cells from King Cold and somehow implanted him with behavior modification, like Dr. Jero tried on 1718. Cell seems like such a nice guy. Yeah, I don't think that all the people in those cities thought that when he was absorbing them to death. So yeah, I don't think that he really could be convinced to turn good. I think he has too many factors kind of working against him. But I could see him convincing himself to turn good, because the fact is that he's such a narcissist that he probably would think, oh, I could be the best good guy ever. Just watch me. I'm the perfect hero. And he's half heroes, half villains. So you could make an argument that nurture would definitely overcome programming. I mean, do you really think that Jero's programming would work on Cell anywhere near as much as anyone else that it completely failed with? Because yeah, he seemed like he was loyal to Jero, but at the same time, I don't think that he could just massively change his whole character and just expect him not to resist it. That'd be like, oh yeah, you're the least perfect being ever. That's what I'm gonna have you now believe. No, you're not. Toriyama completely forgot about the future timelines. When is this supposed to be a thing that happened? Do you mean the original timeline and the unseen timeline? Because they never really get mentioned again after Cell. So maybe the time rings are still there, so there would be a lot less of them if he did in fact forget. Cell was meant to be the ultimate and final villain of the Dragon Ball franchise and story. He's the amalgamation of perfection. Well, yeah, not just that, but also in terms of all the previous villains and heroes combined. I think it makes sense for him to be the final villain and for that arc to be the final arc of Dragon Ball, at the very least up until that point. Maybe take a break, allow Toriyama to come back to it organically in the future. But because he was kind of either pressured by Shonen Jump and Shueisha, or just for whatever reason, decided to keep going. Well, we got the Buu Saga, and then Dragon Ball GT, and then Dragon Ball Super, and the list just goes on and on for other villains that were never as good as Cell or his arc, and kind of, you know, took the quality a little bit in the opposite direction. Trunks' death during the Cell games was done on purpose because he would have helped Gohan during the Kamehameha struggle against Cell. Another one I've heard for a very long time over the course of my time in the fandom, which is that people believe Cell purposely targeted Trunks and killed him because he thought he'd be more of a threat, which kind of goes back to the fight between him and Trunks when, you know, he was saying, oh, you're so much stronger than I am right now. You definitely would be able to defeat me if you could hit me and everything like that. But the thing is that I don't think that there's really the evidence there for that, especially because the fact that with regard to Trunks' power, it was established that Vegeta could have used the same form theoretically. We saw Cell use the same form. And despite the fact that Cell kept saying that Trunks was stronger, I think maybe he meant physically stronger, but he didn't really mean actually as powerful anywhere near as him, because Trunks, that was before he went into the time chamber for a second day. And then when he came out, he still wasn't anywhere near as powerful as Goku and Gohan. So I don't really think that that whole thing of Trunks being a big threat to Cell was really true. I think if Cell went full power, then it didn't really matter at that point. He just was kind of playing up Trunks and his power to kind of teach him a lesson. Futures 19 and 20 also existed, but future Trunks didn't recognize them because he was a baby when they showed up and not because he changed the timeline. Another one I've heard over the years, and yeah, I could see that being the case. I mean, the thing is, when Trunks first showed up, he did say 19 and 20 are the ones who attacked, but of course we know that Toriyama changed the story as he went along to make it 17 and 18. So, you know, the thing is that I do think that's possible, but I do think that with a lot of the theories that maybe I'll see more of, Bulma would have told him all about this stuff. It doesn't make any sense for Bulma to not be like, oh yeah, by the way, there were 2 other androids that our friends fought and defeated before 17 and 18 who were the new main villains and everything. Like, I feel like Bulma would know about this. I feel like this would have been very clear that there were more before them, or technically built after them. Maybe he didn't recognize them, but he didn't seem to be aware of them at all. So I don't think that that really lines up necessarily. Each cell had contained his own DNA structure. Didn't matter what got blown off as long as one cell survived. Then, you know, when he pointed to his head, he didn't mean it was only in his head. I don't agree with this idea. I think that this is just something that was created by the English dub, you know, because the English dub writers seemed like they wanted to just like correct a plot hole. So yeah, I don't agree with that idea. I don't think he could just come back from one cell. I think it would be cooler if he could, not Frieza. With that being said, I don't think it was the case. I think that Toriyama wrote the whole core idea on purpose because, you know, he didn't write cell or molecule or atom or anything. That was kind of his idea, to give him a little core. But if it was like a cell survived, then he would never have died. Like there was blood on the ground. There was tons of cells everywhere, right? Like a cell never actually died if it's one cell, you know, if you actually like think about it. So I don't really agree with that idea. The future androids aren't inherently more evil. They became that way without any challenge over a decade of uncontested dominance and killing. You know, it's up in the air why they are the way they are. That's why I did my whole video about that. I also did a short version of it that you could see on my channel recently. I've actually been uploading a lot of shorts on the channel as of late. As you can see right here, I don't know if you guys have been necessarily getting them in your subscription boxes, if you even use those, your homepage, whatever have you. I've uploaded tons of videos that just kind of get buried on here, which is one of the reasons why I think that, you know, if you guys want to always see all my videos when they come out, that it would be great for you guys to make sure to subscribe to the channel, because otherwise you miss tons of videos like this. It's not really a theory, but the Z Fighters could have jumped Cell when he spit out 18. So I saw a lot of people say this on my video, speaking of, right here, which is, what if the Z Fighters jumped Cell? That even though he could have beaten them all when he was at his full power, they all should have jumped in when he spit out 18. It's like, why would they do that? Gohan had won the fight. Gohan was the one handling it. He was way more powerful than all of them. Why would they just jump into a fight just because they could and kill the villain? That doesn't make any sense. Like in universe or with their like perspectives and their warrior's code, all these things that have been established about them. It's like, oh, well, now that they have the ability to kill the villain, they should just all jump in and kill him. It's like, no, that isn't how it works and never would. And I don't get why people are like that. Oh, Vegeta should have killed him the second he spit out 18. Would Vegeta do that? No, he wouldn't. Would Vegeta interrupt a fight that Gohan had won? Gohan could fire a blast way faster than Vegeta that's way more powerful and punch Cell faster than Vegeta. If Vegeta went full power, or all the other characters, and rushed in as fast as they possibly could, Gohan would outspeed all of them and be able to kill Cell anyway. So the idea that like all of them should have just jumped in when he spit out 18, no, that doesn't make sense. Plus, in the manga, he like immediately goes to blow himself up right after that. So even then, you could argue they didn't have the time. It wasn't like in the anime where he's just like stepping on his hand and making him drop into a pit and stuff, even though he can fly. I never got that scene. It was weird. Cell lost because Vegeta is in him. Yeah, well, in the anime version, you can argue that Yamcha was in him too, and Chaozu too. Toriyama was stealing the main timeline towards future Trunks' timeline, steering it. We see Gohan, Bulma, Yajirobe, and Trunks fly away from the Z Fighters, and only those 4 people survived in the future Trunks timeline. I mean, the thing is that they are meant to parallel each other. There's tons of echoes, time echoes, in fact, which I did a video about last year on my channel, where I go super in depth into that. As you can see right here, the comparison between future Gohan and Gohan from the Cell games, how they both broke or lost their arm, and a lot of other things like that. I've done tons of videos about these over the years, so that's an interesting theory, but with regard to the Yajirobe inclusion, I'll say that's kind of revisionism. Goku could have trained more and made himself capable of defeating Perfect Cell. He just wanted Gohan to get a chance to protect the Earth. My favorite Cell Saga theory. I appreciate you being a member though, Nick. I don't agree at all. I think that that's been kind of like a Goku simping theory, a cope, coping and seething. Yeah, but still, I think that inherently it is not something that's true. As I proceed to drink some Diet Mountain Dew. Hey, it's green like Cell. Am I sure? Almost like I planned that. I think it's clear that Gohan just had way more power inside of him, that he was the much better choice, and that Goku makes the whole point clear when he leaves the time chamber that just going into the time chamber and torturing himself wasn't real training, and that just him training in there wasn't going to get him to the level of Cell. That was Gohan. Gohan didn't even get to the level of Cell until he had trained him up until as far as he could possibly go, and then unlocked his hidden power with a rage boost and a transformation on top of it. So no, I don't think that that's the case. Goku would have had to train for many years, like the 7-year time skip, where he was literally dead with a spiritual body that, as far as we know, didn't really get as tired or didn't have as limited stamina as his living body, trained under King Kai for 7 years to get a little bit stronger than Gohan was in the Cell games when he became a Super Saiyan 2, and then a transformation on top of that. So no, I don't think he stood any chance. That's kind of the point. My theory is I think Dr. Gero trying to manufacture a godlike being in Dragon Ball Z, 18 could equate femininity and 17 with masculinity. These two attributes, when becoming one, represent a perfect being, hence Cell calling himself perfect. Now, interestingly, in the manga, they actually call Cell it most of the time, which makes even more sense, especially when this insect, reptilian, alien being, amalgamation bioandroid, say that 5 times fast, also absorbs a male and female into him and becomes the final being that he is, the perfect life form, which, some people argue that he used those aspects of him to create the Cell Juniors. So yeah, that's a whole other video I've decided not to do as of yet, but I don't know, who knows, it's YouTube. It's kind of hard to know what Gero's real goal was of creating Cell. Maybe it was just to absorb 17 and 18 after they served the purpose for him. Maybe he was working on the idea of Cell before he even created 17 and 18, and that's why he decided to make them the way that he did so that they could be absorbed. Or maybe the computer designed Cell to absorb them because they would further his development We don't really know, but I do go more in depth with that with a video with Black and Fist, so you could see on my channel why the androids didn't obey Dr. Gero. I mean, that's just the title, but it's all about the artificial intelligence and all these different androids and their inspirations. It's one of my favorite videos. I would definitely check it out. The Zenkai boost from survival of Zone explosion was temporary, which is soon realized by Cell, and why Cell felt so eager to quickly end the fight. Not sure what you mean by why he was so eager to quickly end the fight. Do you mean like when he had blasted Gohan's arm and he said, okay, enough playing around, and then he was ready to do it? Because I didn't really get that impression. I mean, for me, it seems like he was going to use the Kamehameha to end the fight because Gohan had given up. And so Cell decided to use it to kind of hammer the message home. Like, this is your father's technique. This is the technique that you had just used before to hurt me. The ultimate Dragon Ball technique that summarizes all the techniques, and I'm going to use it to kill you and blow up the solar system, which I guess I'll survive, hopefully. Somehow Cell survived. Cell went Super Saiyan 2. I actually did a video talking about if Cell was a Super Saiyan recently. Hopefully I have cards left. I don't know at this point. I'm not paying attention. And the idea is that maybe you can argue he was a Super Saiyan 2 based on his aura, his power-up, what he said about powering up just like Son Gohan, and everything else along those lines. But I'll let you decide. The reason the future androids were so much more evil in the future timeline was because that Gero had learned that Goku died, and out of anger, he purposely made them that way out of spite. I mean, maybe it's true. He had lost his ability to gain revenge because it was taken by nature itself. So he was like, you know what? Burn the earth. Let's do it. Salt the earth too while we're at it. Vegeta kills Perfect Cell with the final blast. Vegeta's technique. No, I don't see what you mean. We saw Gohan kill him. I mean, the blast is even blue in the anime. Cell's is Bugs. That's a great theory. Bugs Bunny? After Trunks was killed by Cell, Cell went back in time to a timeline where Trunks was already preordained to arrive even though he was already killed in the future. This is why Cell and Trunks both exist in the main timeline. Cell created an alternate duplicate future by going to the past. Agreed. Cell most probably died without knowing that bungee gum has the properties of both rubber and gum. That is very true. It is a very useful technique that Hisoka uses. Future androids were not weaker. I did a whole video about that. The rules of time travel introduced in the Cell Saga means that there has to be 7 timelines in that arc, not 2 or 3. Well, you're correct that there's not 2 or 3 because there would be at least 4, but I don't know that there is really an argument to say that there would be at least 7, unless some other YouTuber did a video that I never watched about it. The explosion and battling with Super Saiyan 2 Gohan brought Cell to almost the exact power or a little higher than Super Saiyan 2. I would think that's probably the case. The goodness of Goku unknowingly infected Cell to lose the Kamehameha struggle. I don't know about that. That's interesting, but I don't think it would be the goodness, maybe the arrogance or the waku waku, let's have a fight. Dr. Gero found infinite energy generation, while useful, had a much lower power ceiling than he wanted, whereas regular Ki had no such limit, but thus required far more time to harness and make use of. Hence why Cell took 20 or so years to be released, meaning 17 and 18 would be his quick fix for the heroes, while unknowingly fighting their absorption by leaving the planet so empty they'd be relatively easy for him to find with little indication, as far as Gero knows, that they'll get any stronger. That's very possible. I mean, they do make a note of why did he go back to building biological creatures if he could make something like Android 16 that was totally mechanical, so powerful. Another thing you can talk about in the comments, it is possible. The Zenki boost at the end should have been never happened with it being so Cell Zenkai boost. Yeah, I talked about that with Geekdom on my channel last year, I think. Why did Cell get a Zenkai boost when he returned from self-destruction? The cyborgs were never needed for Cell to become perfect. He just needed to hit a certain level of power, and then he could revert back to it any time. And that's why he was able to come back with the Zenkai. As a matter of fact, I talked about that in a video from what I recall. I don't remember which one. You guys can tell me at this point. You guys can tell me in the comments down below instead of in the top right. And yeah, I think that there's probably a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B in that case. That there was something inherent within them that caused him to become perfect, but he did not actually just need a pure amount of power, but it did help after he had already incorporated them into himself with the Zenkai, for instance. The fact that Jiro was the one villain that planned so far ahead that he would have theoretically beaten all the Z fighters, Z in the timeline, the androids in Cell body, the Super Saiyans, and Jiro not even knowing about them, so assuming he did, the android characters would have been ending up in the Buu Saga level. It's insane to think about. Oh, I see. If he had upgraded them based upon knowing about Namek. I actually did a video about that years ago. What if Dr. Jiro knew about Namek sooner? And I think I probably talked about that. Yeah, great idea. Mecha Frieza and King Cold don't need to die, which Trunks' history's altered and lets Jiro's Spybot collector use Frieza and genetic for Cell. The idea is basically that they didn't actually need to die. He changed history needlessly, and that Frieza's genes are the final piece of Cell's manufacturing coming to life. Well, I mean, Cell had already come from either the original timeline or some other alternate timeline based upon his dialogue that you could argue is a plot hole. So, with that being said, I don't think that's true because he always had Frieza and King Cold in him. If Cell found out that he knew Kaioken used against Gohan in the beam struggle, he would have won. I think it's kind of the whole same thing with if you think that Cell is a Super Saiyan, he couldn't have used Kaioken, the machine couldn't have done that for him, or else he would have blown up. But obviously Goku in the afterlife was in a dead body, so you can argue that it wouldn't cause him to blow up. Goku was able to beat Cell on the onset of their battle. Nope. What would have happened if Cell had won the tournament, aka beaten Gohan? I think he would have blown up the planet and then just gone around the universe, blowing everything up, trying to find a challenge. Maybe he could have been taken over by Babidi, like I've mentioned before, or maybe he could have resisted based upon all of the beings that incorporate him and his programming. But either way, unless he had gotten to a power where he would be able to win against them, he would get beaten by Deborah, or Broly, or Moro, or who knows. The androids in Cell's timeline killed him. They would have just had two timelines. Yeah, infinite loop at the end until Trunks kills him. The reason Gohan and Goku left the time chamber early, and why Goku said they didn't need to go back in, is because Goku was low-key scared of Gohan. He was getting some fear in him that was directed toward his father, and he's like, yeah, let's stop trying, please. And that's a little humorous, yeah, for sure, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it's just, like I said in my video in the past, that wasn't really training anymore. They were just torturing themselves and they needed to rest to get real gains and real boosts. And so as a result, yeah, I don't really agree. Super Saiyan 2 Gohan no longer needed his rage boost after Cell initially died in his self-explosion, and Super Perfect Cell will show up stronger and injure Gohan's arm badly. They're basically equal at that point, and Goku and Vegeta's help temporarily brought back the rage boost in Gohan. No, I think that Gohan just unleashed his full power at that point without much fear of destroying the Earth and killing everyone in the process. I mean, Goku even said that Gohan was holding back because he didn't want to destroy the Earth and that they could just wish it back, which is true. They could have contacted New Namek, which they should have also done literally every other timeline to save the Earth, but they could have contacted New Namek and wished back the planet just without Cell there, and, you know, it's all pretty good to go at that point, but no, I don't think it was the rage boost he got at the end. I think that was just him tapping into and utilizing his full power at will, which we saw him go Super Saiyan 2 again, or at least power up with his aura and lightning after Cell returned from self-destruction. So kind of like Goku on Namek, I think he was already kind of getting to that point to where he can power down and power back up at will. Even if 16 was successful at blowing up Cell, there's a good chance that Cell would regenerate. Yep, I did a whole video about that. I think that Cell didn't care about destroying the planet, more looking good to an opponent. Hercule gets defeated by Cell, let the other Z fighters have a chance. Yeah, I don't think that Cell would have let the Earth go. I mean, there's so many other planets out there, like 27 in Dragon Ball Super, and so as a result, I think that everything would have been fine. And finally, the best one ever, obviously, which is Cell isn't dead. Dun dun dun. His perfection lives on, like Cell Saga Media. We are perfection. His regeneration is honestly on par with Buu. No, it isn't. And to my knowledge, he isn't seen the other world. Yes, he is. At any point in canon. Oh, in canon. Well, we barely see the other world, so that's a good point. We never see any of the other villains in the other world in canon up until Resurrection F. So, yeah, all of them are alive. Amazing theory. You just blew my mind. The manga never shows the nucleus getting destroyed. Yeah, I mean, the anime just did that because they wanted to elaborate on it. The anime elaborated on a lot of things because in the manga, that was a super rushed clash. And as a result, he's still out there slowly training and is going to become the most powerful thing in the multiverse. Perhaps someday he will emerge to challenge all known universes. Only the ones we know about, though, not the ones that we don't. Because Toriyama forgot. But all right, guys, what do you think is the biggest Cell Saga theory? There's a lot of the big ones on this list, so it's really hard for me to say what necessarily is the biggest, but I'm sure I'll put in the thumbnail, so we'll have to find out. That being said, guys, make sure to stick around, because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Y'all, and you better subscribe.